everybody, Ben here for the Bonehead podcast, and welcome to Top 5 Friday. On a Friday, we get together and we have a look at the top 5 something, normally to do with Blood Bowl, and we're delving back into star players. And we're delving back into star players that we want back in the game, that were in the game back in the last edition. So there are loads of star players in this game. Games Workshop are dropping Spike magazine after Spike magazine, and there are new star players in there. There are reimagined old star players in there. It's all good. Whether you like star players or not, they are almost always fantastic models, and they're generally quite interesting additions to the game. So I think I'm pro star player all in all. Not pro on how they kind of warp the meta, but just ban the star player and then you end up with two metas, a star player meta and a non-star player meta. Fine. Anyway, I've gone through, had a look at some of the star players that are kicking around that have not been brought back into Blood Bowl 2020, and I put together this top 5. And coming in at number 5, this is one of Rich Saxby's favourite star players, I think, in Blood Bowl, that is currently not in Blood Bowl, and that is Lwdgrip Whiparm. So this is a really interesting star player, and this guy's been around for a really long time. Now, Saxby, big fan of Renegades. I couldn't support him more with that. I am a huge Renegade fan as well, so anything that adds to that team that is a very interesting team, but also all the Chaos teams that isn't Hackflem, that isn't Skitter, is really interesting. And Lwdgrip was always a really great crutch for a developing Renegades team. You see here, we've got his 2016 rules, and he was 160k, movement 6, strength 3, edge 3, armor 9, dodge, loner, pass, strong arms, sure hands, and tentacles. So strong arm would now be Cannoneer. But the fact is that you had this player that you could take for 160k, so less than a superstar, right? Even in the old edition, like we used to say, is it better than a wizard? These days, star players are significantly better than a wizard. But 160k is quite an affordable place. That's kind of where you end up if you're playing Renegades and one of your big guys is out, or you're playing against a team that's, you know, 1100, 1200 TV. For League, this guy was awesome because you get a reasonable movement, not the best. But if you're playing Renegades, and it's still true of Chaos Chosen and Nurgle, potentially, you know, still true of Chaos Dwarves, if you kind of think about it that way. Definitely for Nurgle. Khorne a little bit, I guess, if not definitely. The point is, for 160k, this guy was brilliant because you had a quarterback. This was one of the only players that you would take, and he could run your offense, which was really great for a team like Renegades or even Chaos Chosen. Movement 6 is fine, strength 3 is fine. He's an okay runner if you want him to be. But that sure hands was so integral. He would be able to actually pick up the ball. Sure, he had loner, but that sure hands meant you didn't have to pay for it. Then he had pass, and the strong arm, which now becomes Cannoneer. In the old edition would have meant he would have been a 3+, 4+, 4+, 5+ passer, which is really, really, really effective. Now, even back then, all you were ever doing was just doing the quick pass. That's a 3++ to pick up the ball, and then a 3++ for a quick pass. It was phenomenally useful if you wanted to play a faster game, if you needed that reliability to pick up the ball. He wasn't going to win the game for you, but he was going to make the game less bad, and that was really effective. He also did have dodge, which was quite useful sometimes. Tentacles was, I mean, he was actually quite effective against something like gutter runners and things like that. So that's why I remember this guy. I remember playing against him with my gutter runners. So for me, number 5, one of the star players that we need, I think, to come back to the game is Lwdgrip Whiparm. Number 4, it's a high elf, it's Prince Moranion. So high elves and all elves are kind of stuffed when it comes to star players. They got Glorial at 150, which is actually a really useful player. But otherwise, they don't really get a chance to take much. Sure, you can try and squeeze the Zote in for a bit of muscle or whatever, but it's just not, there's just nothing that adds to your team, really. This is why I think the Elven League stuff should have been able to be played with a team like Gnomes or maybe even Halflings, just to get those star players on the pitch and used. But one elf that we have got to assume is coming in the future, if they complete the Teams of Legend, when they complete High Elves, they've got to bring back Prince Moranion. Now, in this edition, star players are almost across the board cheaper. And in the last edition, he was 230k. This edition, you've got to say he probably comes in at 210. That's almost achievable for elves. And there's two things there. One, when it comes to League, having an affordable star player gives you options other than just a reroll and an apothecary. And when it comes to tournaments, having a star player that's less than, what, 300 and something k for the Swift Twins gives you something to build around. But Prince Moranion is just a quality and classic star player. Movement 7, Strength 4, Ag 4, which would have been Ag 2+ in this edition, Armor 8, which is Armor 9+ in this edition. Don't know what his passing would be, probably 4+ because he's an elf. Block, Dauntless, Loner, Tackle, Wrestle. This is as close to a decent brawler as elves get. This guy is an elf superstar, but and I've got nothing. I don't need to say anything more about that, right? Movement 7, Strength 4, Ag 2+ piece. Like, who do we have in the game that is close to that? That is what? An Ag boosted Carla. That is basically Griff for elves. And the fact that you've got an elf here that comes with block and tackle and also wrestle and dauntless means that he is going to be a really effective blitzer, a really effective blocker, and a very effective safety. Like, that wrestle block combination means that actually you're pretty much going to be able to tackle down to the ground whichever person you are attacking, and you've got that dauntless as well, which combined with strength 4 means that he's actually pretty effective at taking down big guys, which is a bit of a vulnerability of elves. So the reason we need Prince Moranion, not only is it a quality looking model, like, come on, this guy is a dragon prince, a high elf dragon prince, but a pretty useful all-round strength 4 Ag 2+ piece for elves that can be affordable. Then you've got some roster builds. Number 3, it's Ramtut III. So another Team of Legends star that you've got to assume comes back in one guise or another. We have got Ramtut. Now, he is an old school, he's an old school Tomb King star player, but this guy is up there with Morg as being one of the chunkiest and most terrifying forces on the Blood Bowl pitch. And it's just mad that they've not brought him back yet. Like, this guy is like a forgotten legend, and the further we get into the 2020 edition, it's now 2025, the more forgotten Ramtut gets. And he doesn't need to be. He ought not to be. So in the last edition, you had Ramtut and like 360k. So this edition, you're probably toning that down to 340. Now, there's a reason he's probably not going to be much cheaper than that. Movement 5, Strength 6, Ag 1, Armor 9. So in this edition, we're looking at Ag 6+, probably Ag 5+. Then you've got Armor 10, fine, Strength 6, and Movement 5 is just monstrous. And it comes with Break, Tackle, Loner, Mighty Blow, Regeneration, and Wrestle. So the interesting thing about Ramtut here is that you've got that wrestle piece, that Strength 6 wrestle piece, which means most of the time he is going to be able to drag down whoever you want. It's not block, it's not as good as block, but this guy's got no nega trait, and he has got, what, the biggest strength in the game other than Morg and trees. So the fact he's got that, this guy is probably the only other time in this edition you would see a star player with Mighty Blow +2, because I think the designers would want to just really drive home how terrifying, how epic Ramtut is. Now, on the downside, he is well expensive, and I don't know how easy he would be to fit into any roster. He's the price of like 7 Tomb Guards, but this is one of those pieces that you just know is mighty. I mean, it's written on the card. So I would love to see Ramtut back. I'm hoping that they do Tomb Kings, and when they do Tomb Kings, we see like a Tomb Guardian star player, and I think it's got to be this guy. Number 2, it's Flint Churnblade. I had to double check that they hadn't brought Flint back, and I'd missed it, but I hadn't. But they haven't. They brought back Barrack Farblast, but not Flint Churnblade. So Flint Churnblade is a dwarf star player, chainsaw, and I think he was one of the first players with chainsaws released in Blood Bowl. And the classic model of him, which I will pop on screen now, where he's just holding this obviously Space Marine chainsword. It's just for me, it's just 2nd edition Blood Bowl. It's pure Origin Blood Bowl, it's just got such a cool vibe. He's got his NFL, his old school American football helmet. He's got his padded jacket that just goes in with Elves Dwarves Dungeon Bowl from the second edition set. That was just peak orange, and it was just such a cool thing. We've got dwarves, and this was back when dwarves were all about secret weapons and like mechanical devices and things. I know we've still got the death roller, but like some of the core identity of the infamous dwarf teams was about the fact that they were all about chainsaws and killdozers and rocket launchers and just nonsense, and that was a really cool thing to be. Now, and that's why I think we need to see Flint Churnblade come back. It's difficult, so I've put him this high because the model and just the pedigree is so pure that this guy needs to be in Blood Bowl, in my opinion. When it comes to actually needing a chainsaw, obviously the dwarves can just run Wolf Chainsaw Man. Okay, so there is a chainsaw player available, but they've got the option here to bring in a cheaper star player, right? Because you've got a low movement dwarf with a chainsaw. He's not going to be running around doing loads of stuff, but you know, 110k, which means again, dwarves have got something to buy that isn't Cindy Pie Whistle, and it's like dwarves are brutal. Like they take there's no mercy. There's no prisoners with dwarves. And I can't think of anything that says that anymore than a dwarf with a chainsaw. Number 1, that's right, it's a squig in Blood Bowl. Madcap Miggz. Now, Madcap Miggz is not an old school player. I think, if anything, he is by far the youngest player on this roster, both probably with lore and also just availability. I think Flint Churnblade was around in 2nd edition, Moranion was 3rd, Ramtut was probably 3rd. Madcap Miggz dropped at some point, I think. Might have been with Goblins? Did Goblins even get a spike? I don't know. Dropped at some point in the 2016 edition. There was no model. There was no model. It was just boom. Here is a souped up pogo on a squig. Now, you guys will know that I love squigs, and I love the idea of squigs in Blood Bowl because it's just carnage. It's just ridiculous. It's just nonsense. And that's really fun. Chaos reigns supreme on the Blood Bowl pitch, and squigs are there. Now, the cool thing about Madcap is in the last edition, 170k. We're looking at 140, 150k in this edition, which means he is very affordable. Movement 6 is fine. Strength 4 is wonderful. Edge 3 is Edge 4, 3+ in this edition. Armor would be 9+ in this edition. Break, tackle, claws, leap, loner, no hands, very long legs, and wild animal. This is a secret weapon that doesn't have secret weapon. Break, tackle in the old edition with strength 4 means he was dodging out on a 2+. Claws does the same thing it used to do. Lone is fine, no hands is fine, very long legs, and leap means that with Edge 3 he was leaping on a 2+ basically. And wild animal was just the nega trait, which makes a ton of, just an absolute ton of sense. In fact, I would say that if they bring squigs back, and if they don't have, they should have really stupid, because you need to herd them. But as a rider, wild animal makes a lot of sense. So I just want to see a squig in Blood Bowl. And this star player fills a little bit of a gap when it comes to just the extra carnage that a goblin team could run. But I think for me, the reason I want this guy back most of all is because it's not something that goblins have access to. It's not something that there exists in Blood Bowl. There's Rumbelow. There's Roanna, but so there's precedent for people riding animals. But greenskins need a bit of sauce, and it's not going to help them win loads, but it's something that goblin coaches could try out, do something different. It's just something cool. A squig in Blood Bowl, and for me, that absolutely takes this piece to number 1. Okay, so that's my top 5. There's one player here missing that you will probably guess, and it is the Ninja star player. So last week on the podcast, we talked about the Cathay team that has been dropped by Punga, that they're working through, and the fact that Cathay is coming back to the old world is very, very, very cool. And it got us thinking, what would a Cathay team look like? And when you've got Cathay, you've got right next door, you've got Nippon, and Nippon has the ninjas, and it made you think immediately of Hoshikomi, which was a human ninja star player from first edition, second edition, first edition. And that was it. That was basically it. That I would love to see. I'd love to see a Cathay team. I'd love to see a Nippon team. I would love to see Blood Bowl following suit with the old world and just kind of expanding the realms without having to go too crazy, although you can in Blood Bowl. But yeah, Hoshikomi was the one I left off the list because I think there's no Hoshikomi without potentially a Nippon team, and that would be quite interesting to see. Anyway, let me know in the comments which star player you would love to see come back into this edition of Blood Bowl, and we'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy blocking.